Ships in the Star Wars universe are big, bad, and more often than not shaped like a slice of pizza. In honor of those pie-shaped monstrosities, today we're talking about the most powerful ships in the Star Wars universe. Now I know what you're thinking. Eckhart's Letter, didn't you just make a list yesterday about something else? Are you getting lazy? Are you doing just lists now? And no, it's nothing like that. But this list, people have been asking for it since I started making videos, so I figured it was about time to get it done. So strap in because this is going to be a lot of fun. We actually only have 2 rules today. The first is that we're dealing with ships only, spaceships, so that's no super weapons. We're not going to deal with the Death Star, we're not going to deal with the Galaxy Gun, we're not dealing with any of that shit today. The second rule today is that we're dealing with ships as they appear in the Legends canon, just because there's so much more to deal with, and I think it'll be a bit more fun. That being said, I think we'll have a canon version of this list sometime in the near future. Starting off our list at number 5 is the Executor class Star Dreadnought. This ship was basically a reconfiguration of the Executor class Star Dreadnought, but in my opinion lacked a little bit of the firepower. Typically an Executor class Dreadnought would have about 4,500 turbo laser batteries, whereas an Executor had far fewer although heavier batteries. In the Star Wars universe, large capital ships have always been susceptible to attack from fighters, whether it's a Y-wing doing a bombing run, a B-wing getting in there and causing some damage, whatever. So in my mind, having less turbo laser batteries leaves you more open to attack. So that's why I've put the Executor class ship lower than the Executor class, despite it essentially just being a reconfiguration of the ship. Also worth noting is that the Executor class was 1,500 meters. This is huge, 15 kilometers of pure badass spaceship. To compare that to later ships, the Executor class, for example, is 19 kilometers, and we know how big that thing is, so this is almost that big. Just a bit more info. The Executor class was a Star Dreadnought for the Empire during the Galactic Civil War, and although we didn't see it in the movies, the Legends canon stated that there were actually a couple that existed by the time of the Battle of Yavin. The real-world origins of the Executor are kind of interesting as well. A fan artist by the name of Fractal Sponge actually designed the ship and put it on his blog. He was later hired to work on the Essential Guide to Warfare as an illustrator, during which time the ship itself was actually added to the book. So certainly an interesting genesis for the ship. The last thing I want to say is that there's been some confusion about the power of this ship, how much damage it can actually do, how much damage its guns can do, and how powerful its shield is. And this is because when the ship was actually created for the first time by Fractal Sponge, he made up his own specifications, and his version of the ship was that it was the best warship the Imperial Navy could possibly build. What U.S. Senator Benjamin Tillman in the early 1900s referred to as the maximum battleship. However, this approach to the ship hasn't been taken over to the canon, so it shouldn't be relied on. The 4th most powerful ship type in the Star Wars universe is the Executor class Super Star Destroyer. And based on the fact that this is only number 4, you should know that we got some big shit coming. The Executor class was 19 kilometers long and was used by the Empire during the Galactic Civil War. It served as a command ship for very important persons, including Darth Vader and Grand Moffs. One thing that's notable about this ship is just the sheer amount of firepower it possessed. The standard Executor had over 4,000 turbo laser and heavy turbo laser cannons, also possessing over 500 anti-aircraft cannons and proton torpedoes, ion cannons, missiles. Just basically, if you want it, the ship probably has it. The average Executor could also field thousands and thousands of TIE fighters, which almost made it act like a carrier along with a frontline assault ship, making it a deadly combination. The only thing that's holding this ship back from going higher on the list is the lack of several key features. This ship is among the elite of the elite, and although it's missing several key features that the next ships have, which would really push it to the next level, it's still almost invincible in a battle. And keep in mind that when this ship was built and when it was really in its prime, it was the best of the best. And in fact, it took so many resources just to operate the thing, and it was so powerful that Mon Mothma said that if the Rebel Alliance somehow managed to steal one, they wouldn't be able to do shit with it just because, they didn't have enough people to operate the thing. Third on our list is the Mon Calamari designed Viscount class Star Defender. And let me just say, it's a good thing this ship is here, because without them, it'd probably be all triangle-shaped Imperial ships on the list, so it's nice to have at least one good guy ship. The Viscount class was a massive line of ships coming in at near 17 kilometers long, almost as long as the Executor class Super Star Destroyer. Also impressive is that it matches almost exactly the armament of the Executor class Super Star Destroyer, so it packs a lot of firepower. However, where the ship really shines is in its defensive capabilities. Not only was the vessel more compact than the Executor class Star Destroyer, it actually had much thicker armor, Complementing the armor was a very efficient shield system, which actually recharged faster than most other capital ships, and allowed the ship to take basically a big beating without the hull being damaged. Even further complementing the ship's defensive capabilities were the fact that it could even field more starships, more snub-nosed fighters than the Executor-class Dreadnought, and it had a fleet of repair droids which could actually fix the ship in an emergency situation. It should be noted that although the Viscount was originally intended to counter Imperial forces, it really didn't serve that purpose for very long, and its main use came in the Yuuzhan Vong War. And one of those notable moments during the war was at the defense of Mon Calamari, where a Viscount-class carrier and a Super Star Destroyer, an Executor-class Super Star Destroyer, basically defended Mon Calamari from a large Yuuzhan Vong fleet, which is just awesome. The second most powerful ship in the Star Wars universe is the Sovereign-class Super Star Destroyer, and this thing, like its older sister, who we're going to talk about in just a minute, is a beast. However, unlike the other ships on the list, this thing isn't a beast because it has a lot of turbo lasers, or it's got a heavy shield, or it's got a really thick armor. It's a beast because it's got these other features that just make it almost unstoppable. First of all, the Sovereign class has a gravity well generator, and that basically means that if somebody is close enough to your ship, they can't jump away from in hyperspace. So if you sneak up on somebody and they try to run away, not going to happen. As I'm going to talk about in a moment, the Sovereign class is basically the smaller version of the Eclipse class Super Star Destroyer. And although I say smaller, the thing is still 15 kilometers long. Along with its impressive length, it has an okay turbo laser armament, but I mean, that's not really where the magic comes from. The ship has a smaller version of the Death Star super laser attached to it. And if that sounds incredibly overpowered, well, it's because it is. And because unlike the Death Star, it doesn't have a huge hole in it that you can fly into, good luck destroying this thing before it gets you first. I'm going to talk about this more when we get to the Eclipse, but just basically know that if you run into this thing and you don't have 3 fleets behind you, you're in big, big trouble because it is going to pick you out of the sky. So we're finally here, number 1, the mother of all ships and the truly destructive force that is the Eclipse class Super Star Destroyer. And again, this thing is a beast. It's basically a buffed up version of the Sovereign, which alone is basically enough to wipe out an entire fleet. And when I say buffed up, I mean buffed up. Although it's not the longest ship, being a few kilometers shorter than both the Executor and the Vengeance-class Dreadnoughts, it is the most voluminous ship in the Star Wars universe. And no other ship can stand in a one-on-one battle against the Eclipse. And the Annihilator, which was an Executor-class Dreadnought, found this out the hard way in the Battle of Quat when the thing got cracked open in one shot. Covered this more in a previous video if you guys want to learn more. But yeah, this thing, like, it's just on a whole nother level. So along with using the super laser to destroy other ships, you can also, cut a planet open, destroy some cities, kill some civilians. It's just, the possibilities are endless. And of course, like the Sovereign class, this also has gravity well generators, so if it finds you, you can't even run. There's only ever been 2 Eclipse class ships, the Eclipse 1 and the Eclipse 2, and there are actually a few small variations between them, mostly in the command bridge location and the amount of engines. It's not really important, but the only things that were able to actually destroy these ships were Force Lightning Storm by Palpatine and R2-D2 getting into some shenanigans. So no other ship has actually bested the Eclipse in one-on-one or even 100-on-1 combat, and that's pretty impressive. And I'm actually going to bring this back to current canon for a second. In the Aftermath trilogy, we learned that the Emperor has a flagship called the Eclipse, and we know that it's some sort of Star Dreadnought, but we don't know whether it's a regular Executor-class Star Destroyer that just happens to have the name Eclipse, or whether it's actually an Eclipse-class Star Destroyer. Right now, in the current canon, the only sort of Dreadnought that we've actually seen has been in the Executor class, but I will say it does seem strange to me to choose such a name given the obvious connotations. The Eclipse in the current canon was last seen hiding out somewhere in the Unknown Regions. Also in the Unknown Regions is a dark force sensed by Emperor Palpatine. I, along with several others on my page, have hypothesized that this dark energy is Snoke, and that he might actually have possession of the Eclipse and be using it as some sort of mobile command center. So basically my point is that there is a small chance that we see the Eclipse class make a return not only in current canon, but in a movie. So that would be really cool. Anyways, guys, that's it for my list for today. Let me know what you think. What is the most powerful ship in the Star Wars universe in your opinion? And not only that, what is your favorite? Just shoot me a comment and I'll, of course, respond. My featured comment from today comes from Sarah Scheller, who took a little bit of issue with my Jar Jar video, particularly my claim that the Darth Jar Jar theory was no more. And I think she maybe half or fully jokingly said that Jar Jar is not a clown now, he's just got an apprentice, which I thought was pretty funny. If you don't understand the reference, go watch the video and go check out the comment, because it is funny. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you very much. Keep an eye out for another video this weekend, most likely. If not, then probably Monday. And thanks also for everyone who joined the live stream today. We talked about Star Wars for probably 2 hours. If you want to be notified next time I go live, follow me on Twitter or put a comment in this video and I'll make sure to let you know. This has been Eckhart's Ladder, and I'm going to sign off until next time. May the Force be with you.